To an historic episode of the morning meeting. Historic for so many reasons, soon to be revealed. Thank you for joining. If you're here on the two-way platform and want to get in on this rock'em sock'em conversation, please raise your yellow electronic hand. We'd love new people today, as always. So if you've never raised your hand, Professor Kenny, probably new. Don't recall Professor Kenny before. Welcome in. And if you're watching on X or YouTube, please don't raise your hand and don't put smack in the chat. As always, we're all about peace, love, and understanding. And to that end, look who's joined us. Once again, making return engagement by what Hardy would call HAP, and he calls popular demand, Larry O'Connor, host of the WML great program, O'Connor and Company. Who's in the company? Who's company?
Rotating guest hosts, permanent Julie Gunlock, Independent Women's Forum, and Patrice Onwuka, also from Independent Women's Forum, and Mercedes Schlapp joins me on a semi-regular basis.
Would you consider having Dan Turrentine sit in?
Well, usually it is a woman, but I'll tell you, Sean has done it before, Sean Spicer. Yeah. So absolutely, I would love to have Dan on.
Sean Spicer, played by a woman, but not a woman.
Exactly. Sort of like the old Shakespearean days. Yeah. We also have Molly Hemingway sometimes. She's fabulous and a blast. But I'd love to have Dan on. We used to have Democrats on my show a lot more than the Trump era sort of. Lanny Davis used to be a weekly regular on my show.
Okay.
And
also not a Republican and not a woman. And Larry also, of course, hosts the daily live streaming show, Larry, on Town Hall Media. Larry, we're very happy to have you back. In all honesty, we've got great feedback for you being on, and we love having you here. All right. Normal format. In just a moment, I'll run through the Daybook, and then what are we looking at there? Is that's not the president's not talking live there? No,
that's him on the left, lower left on Fox.
Okay. All right, there he is. Oh no, he's about to talk, I think. Right? Yeah, let's take that.
Yeah,
let's
he's
take
coming
Fox.
to the mics.
Take Fox, please.
Unified party. I don't think we've ever had a party like this. There's some people that want a couple of things that maybe I don't like or that they're not going to get. But I think we're going to have tremendous, not luck, we have tremendous talent. This man has done an incredible job as Speaker. We had a majority of 1. We were 1 heart attack away from losing the House, okay? Now we have 7. That's a big, because we won some elections, as you probably noticed, and we're going to win a lot of elections. We have an economy that's roaring. We took out 5.1 billion. If you take a look, 5.1 trillion with a T, not a B. 5.1 trillion out of the Middle East. They're investing more than that. It's going to be ultimately more than that. At 180 wide-body Boeing aircraft. They're spending money at levels that nobody's ever seen. Usually a president goes for a trip and he loses money. In other words, he gives money. We went for a trip and we took out $5.1 trillion. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. And that's just the beginning. So I think we're a very unified party. The Senate's doing great. John Thune is doing fantastically. He's a great guy. And we're going to have a bill, the one big beautiful bill. I think it's the biggest bill ever passed, and we got to get it done. Tremendous tax cuts for people, tremendous incentives, tremendous regulation cuts, all these regulations that are so horrible. And now you find out what happened, because Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that could want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And
it's all about the auto-pen, ladies and gentlemen.
Who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa. They came in from Asia. They came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo in Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country.
Mike Johnson, thought bubble. What does this have to do with reconciliation? Prisons in the Congo.
This is not convincing Ralph Norman.
If you go to the original Braveheart speech, there's no mention of Congolese prisons.
Getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait,
now we're into the history lesson.
This is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the auto pen. And they used the auto pen and everything. He didn't approve this stuff because when Joe Biden was with it, he would never have approved it. You take a look. He would have never approved open borders. Go ahead, another one.
Are Republicans still grandstanding?
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah, sure. You have a couple that will grandstand, but I think even the grandstand...
Larry, if I get cancer, I want you to show me that level of sympathy.
68% tax increase. And you can blame
Count on
the
it.
Thank you.
Democrats for that, and one or two grandstanders. We only have one or two, but we have tremendous support. But you'll have a 68% tax increase, or you'll get a massive tax decrease. You'll get a tax cut, the likes of which we've never had before. This is bigger than any Ronald Reagan tax cut. It's even bigger than the tax cut.
There we go. This is what we
Because,
need.
as you know, that's being extended and increased. So this is the biggest tax cut in the history of our country.
There we go.
Or you'll get a 68% tax increase. And if that happens, I mean,
Binary
one
choice.
Republican could
Yep.
vote for that to happen, because there wouldn't be a Republican much longer. They would be knocked out so fast. But we're going up to details. This is I'm a cheerleader for this party, and I'm a cheerleader for the country. Much more importantly for the country.
Interesting.
But I'm a cheerleader for the party, and we're going to go up, and I think we're going to have a very good discussion. There are one or two points that some people feel strongly about, but maybe not so
On
strong.
one of those points, do you consider some of the proposals on the table in copay and provider tax as a benefit cut? How are you viewing
But
those?
we are looking at one thing. We're not doing any cutting of anything.
Guarantee you he has no idea about that
All
detail.
is waste, fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. There's incompetent things with it. We have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid. I don't think anybody minds if we cut that. The Democrats, on the other hand, are going to destroy it because they're going to leave these people on. We're cutting three things: waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security.
I believe we have
If I wanted to do
messaging,
those
gentlemen.
things, I would have done it
Achieved
during my
full
4 years
messaging.
that we were-
Mr. President, what's your message to your fellow New Yorker Republicans who are hung up on the SALT issue? State.
Well, SALT is a very interesting thing because the governors of New York and Illinois, you know, the big JB who's going nowhere. Probably right now he could be the worst governor in the country. But Illinois and Gavin Newsom, those are the people that want this. And they're Democrat states. They're all Democrat states. You know, Ronald Reagan tried very hard to get this passed, was unable to do it the way we have it, where basically everybody's treated equally. He tried it so hard, and he never got it done. He was always disappointed. He never got it done. We got it done. Now people want to change it. So we're going to be talking about that. But the biggest beneficiary, if we do that, are governors from New York, Illinois, and California. And those governors are the ones that blew it because they weren't able to get it. So I think we're going to be explaining that. These are all very blue states that I don't really believe. If we had honest elections, I don't actually believe. I think I would have won California. I would have won New York. I even think I would have won Illinois. I think we have to, you know, we're going to start.
Apparently, he never spoke on Long Island this summer.
Yeah, I'm his biggest fan. I love this guy. He's the only guy who could have walked in with a one. Think of it. You can't be a guy like me and have a one majority. You have to be a guy like him, a nice person. He's very religious. He prays. He's a man of God. So am I, but he's really to a new level. He's
Oops.
a great guy. They love him in Louisiana.
Oops.
They love him in. That's the only kind of guy. Somebody said, "Oh, well, we want somebody that if you put a certain personality in there, you would have never." Look at what he got passed, what he's gotten passed, and just so you understand, he's gotten this passed too. And I don't think there's anybody I could give you guys that is so tough. You guys would run if you ever looked at them. If you ever saw some of these guys, you would not ask them questions. You'd be afraid to. This guy did something that I don't think there's anybody that's more well-suited to be Speaker of the House.
This is
especially in
huge.
a case like this. Remember, we had a majority of one for 6 months.
Of course, if it doesn't pass, he's going to drive him out.
Oh, you
Because the
cynic.
Democrats
I'm
have
joking.
really hurt our country.
You could be
And
right.
we're going to go into very much, remember what I said, the auto pay. This government was illegally run for 4 years. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Wow.
All right, there's a million things we could say about this.
Yes.
Hold on. But hold off for a minute because let me just run through. Take that down, Paul, if you would. Again, I'm going to run through some stuff for you, and then the Daybook, and then Dan and I will kick it around, and then your question. So please raise your hand if you want to be in the conversation. All right. As much as I'd like to talk about John Thune and Speaker Johnson, a few things to tell you. First of all, announcing 3 new shows. We've told you there are more shows coming on the platform, and there are on a variety of topics, including some unrelated to politics, and we'll have more announcements soon. But we're super excited to tell you about the 3 shows that are coming in the next few weeks. And first is May 21st, tomorrow. Our friend Bridget Fatesi, Real America with Bridget Fatesi. Bridget is an extraordinary talent. All of our new colleagues are, but Bridget is a comedian and a podcaster and a writer, and has been in demand everywhere for a long, long time. And she's coming to Two-Way because she really believes in what we're doing. And I want to show you a video that Bridget made announcing Real America with Bridget Fatesi.
Hi everyone, I'm Bridget Fatesi, and I am so excited to announce my new show on Two-Way. It's called Real America, and I'm going to use the Two-Way platform to hear from viewers and listeners across the United States, exploring the nuanced middle ground where most Americans reside. Together, we'll uncover what unites us, what motivates us, and what shapes our shared stories.
We do need to be a little more reasonable.
I would say what folks are looking for is tangibility.
But this show won't work without you. So go to twoway.tv, register, then come and let me know what's going on with you, America. What are you excited about?
The memes about it were pretty good.
What are you worried about?
How are we not, having some huge problems?
What's pressing on the back of your mind? Real America with me, Bridget Fatesi, premieres Wednesday, May 21st on YouTube and Two-Way. Can't wait to see you there.
My record of pronouncing Bridget's last name incorrectly is a very solid 100%, no matter how many times I hear it. Anyway, that's the first show. Again, premiering. It'll be on Wednesdays at 7 Eastern. If you're not familiar with my friend Bridget's work, you're going to be in for a treat. She's just a genius. So that's the first show up. Next show up is a show featuring, amongst others, Dan. Oh, sorry. Got him in the wrong. There we go. Group chat. Okay. Group chat. It's a show led by our friend Bachungar Sargon, and then Dan, and then 3 others, Nina Turner, Robbie Suave, and Emma Jo Morris. 5 incredible people. And you've seen panel shows on cable news. This is different. These are 5 very thoughtful people with divergent positions and points of view, but they will have peace, love, and understanding always. And so if you like this program, if you like Two-Way Tonight, I know you will love the group chat. Again, Thursdays at 4, starting a week from Thursday. But this Thursday, 2 days from now, all 5 of them will be my guests on Two-Way Tonight. So you can get to spend some time with them this week, and then the program launches the week after. And then launching this Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Ethan Strauss. Again, some of you may not know Ethan. He was the beat reporter for the Golden State Warriors for many years, Random Offense. Great title. I wish I had thought of it for something I did. Ethan writes a great Substack. He's an incredible podcaster. Really, as with the other hosts who I just told you about, so excited to have him on Two-Way. He's a unique talent, and his understanding of the intersection of politics, culture, and sports is unparalleled. Super interesting. So you'll get lots of details in my Substack and elsewhere of how to watch all 3 shows, but we're very excited about those, and believe it or not, we have more coming. So stay tuned. All right. Very quickly, just to remind you of 3 programs. Is he talking again? Is he talking again? Is this live? Is this live? Let's take this live.
There's 913.
We brought it back to our country. 180 Boeing aircraft are being built now because of that trip, and many other things. That's the least of it. The economy is doing great. The stock market's higher now than when I came to office, and we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff money, and we've had no inflation. They kept saying inflation. There's no inflation. Groceries are down. Gasoline is way down, way down. Everything is down. All energy costs are down. I'll tell you, to me, maybe the most respected thing, you saw the way they respected me between Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE, probably the richest, certainly the richest of their type nation, great places, unbelievable amounts of money. They respect our country again. They were going to go to China. China was going to take over those countries 100%. They were dealing with China because they weren't treated right by the last administration. and they have tremendous economic power. They have more
CNN
money
is taking this too. MSNBC is
We have
not.
more money, but we have other things. They are very cash rich, to put it mildly. And they're spending 5.1 trillion. Probably it's going to be 7 trillion by the time we stop. And somebody said every other president goes and leaves and spends money, gives other countries money. I'm the only one that goes and takes money back. When you think of it, I said that's an interesting statement. I never thought of it that way. But we have this is really just a pep talk. We have a very unified House, and we have a very unified Senate. And Mike is doing a phenomenal job as Speaker. He's going to be there a long time. And we have a man in the Senate, our leader, Thune. Mr. Thune is doing a great job. I've gotten to like him a lot, and he's doing a fantastic job. Between the two guys,
Gotten to like him a lot.
different personalities, actually, in certain ways, but they are doing a fantastic job. I don't think the Republican Party has ever been so unified. It's become a much bigger party. We're winning the labor vote. We won the Teamsters. We won votes that nobody. Look how well we did with the automakers. And by the way, the president of the automakers is now my biggest fan. He said, he did tariffs. Do you know how many auto plants are being built now in this country because of the tariffs? 3 just announced yesterday that they're building. There's a revolution going on, a positive one, in our country, and I love it, and we're doing really well. And we'll see the
negotiations to stop, Mr. President. Do you want the negotiations to be over now?
Which negotiation?
Over this bill.
Oh yeah, well it's going to be. We're going to be putting it in soon, and I think we're going to have great support. We're going to make a couple of tweaks. I mean, we don't want to benefit Democrat governors, although I would do that if it made it better, but they don't know what they're doing.
So you want
we don't want to do any damage to a state. We want to help all the states, but we have governors that are from the Democrat Party. Let's say New York, Illinois, big ones, and let's say Gavin Newsom, who's done a horrible job in California. We want to benefit we want to benefit Republicans because they are the ones that are going to make America great again. The Democrats are destroying our country, and you see that with the past administration, with an open borders policy that allowed 21 million people into our country, and many of those people are stone cold murderers, killers, and trouble. Yeah.
What are you planning to tell the fiscal hawks who want to delay this? What are you planning to tell the fiscal hawks who want to delay this?
I'm a fiscal hawk.
They don't think this cuts enough spending.
I'm a bigger fiscal hawk. There's nobody like me as a fiscal hawk.
Thomas said that is more deficit than Biden did, and this bill kind of...
Because we have to fix the country.
Do you think that Thomas Massey is correct in saying that this is adding Biden level
No, I don't think Thomas Massey understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of questions, he never gives you an answer. He just says, I'm a no. He thinks he's going to get publicity. And you have that. You have that. They've got some too. Go ahead.
Mr. President, on Medicaid, do you want work requirements phased in next year? Do you think
Here's what I want on Medicaid. We're not touching anything. All I want is one thing. 3 words. We don't want any waste, fraud, or abuse. Very simple. Waste, fraud, abuse. Other than that, we're leaving it. Medicare, we're leaving it. All we're after, and this is for the good of it, is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. That's all we're doing. We're not touching it. The Democrats are going to destroy it. Thank you very much.
Larry, you got that?
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm taking notes.
The big news, which we'll get to. Hold on, he's not done. Fraud and abuse.
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
Waste, fraud, in that order.
The big news, which we'll get to in a second, is he really does not seem like a Dan Turrentine fan of fan of salt. We'll get to that in a second. All right, I know hours late.
He's not a fan of salt anymore because he was 3 months ago.
I understand. I understand. We'll get to everything in a second. Again, I know we're 20 minutes in and we haven't gotten to even to the Daybook, but real quick. 3 programs to tell you about. Tonight, Two-Way Tonight is not on. If you're going to join us live on the Two-Way platform, please join not at 6 Eastern, but at 5 Eastern. 2 great guests. The Justice Department's Ed Martin, who was up to be the U.S. Attorney, but was blocked by Republicans in the Senate, now working in the Justice Department. And the guy I call the D.C. IT lobbyist, Chess McDowell, who was profiled recently in the Wall Street Journal. We're going to have incredible insight into Trump 2.0. So join us again. It'll stream live at normal time, 6 Eastern on YouTube here and on X. But if you want to join the conversation, questions for those two gentlemen, and you will want to do that, please join me at 5. Michael Moynihan at 7 o'clock tonight with Olivia Reingold of the Free Press. 7 o'clock, join Michael. And then later today, finally, my podcast, video podcast, next up on the Megyn Kelly Network, will drop my interview with Joe Scarborough, my friend, talking about in public a version of the conversation we've had for years and years about Joe Biden's mental acuity, where we agree on a lot, and where we disagree. So you'll be able to listen to that on YouTube or watch it on YouTube or listen to it. All right. The schedule. You've seen the president. He's on Capitol Hill. He's on Capitol Hill because he's speaking to the House Republican Conference. He will give a version of the same Braveheart speech every president I've ever covered has given when there's a big piece of legislation on the line. And as you can tell from there, he's going to tell them, first of all, he seems going to tell them something about SALT, but he's going to tell them failure is not an option because if they fail, there'll be a big tax increase. He goes back to the Capitol, or to the White House rather, after he speaks to the conference. The House leadership's going to have a press conference after he goes. The president also is going to, when he gets back to the White House, a Take Our Sons and Daughters to Work Day event on the South Lawn. I bet he has some funny things to say there. And the White House briefing is at 1 o'clock. And White House reporters were allowed to bring up to 2 of their children to ask questions. So all but the most hard-hearted of viewers will find it to be super adorable. Don't know what the vice president's doing. Scott Bessent in Canada for the G7. As I said, the House, the Republican leadership are having their press conference at 10. House Democrats are right now also having their weekly caucus meeting. Senate Finance, 10 o'clock, Billy Long's nomination to be head of the IRS. The Senate weekly lunches are 12:45 today. And many cabinet members are on Capitol Hill testifying on behalf of their budgets and various committees. Secretaries Noem, Rubio, Kennedy, and Burgum, and Lee Zeldin. And that's pretty much it. All right, guys, reconciliation. Dan, besides the fact that the president seems less keen on SALT today than previously, what is your take on what he said and where this is headed? Knowing that they're trying to vote at 1 a.m. tonight, in rules, and they seem to have the vote in rules, so it's now a floor fight. Just give us your sense of what the president said and where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wants points on the board. He wants the vote. He wants it to get through. He wants the process to keep going. And I think, look, to the Freedom Caucus, it's not their party anymore. It's Trump's party. He doesn't believe in debt and deficit whatsoever, despite his statement just now to the contrary. And I thought it was interesting that he basically is going to walk into that room and tell the SALT caucus to kind of cut the you-know-what. It's time to go. So it sounds like he's going to tell both sides, like, no more. Right. And they're going to press ahead, and we'll see, what they both do. I think it'll pass. No one's going to really go to war with him and MAGA, and onward we march.
So Larry, basically saying SALT, you're done negotiating. More cuts, you're done negotiating. The bill's basically where it is, although he said might be some tweaks. What's your sense of where we are?
Sure seems that way. This morning I interviewed Ralph Norman, one of the Freedom Caucus, and yesterday Andy Harris, the chairman of the Freedom Caucus. Neither of them would commit to the vote. They think it still needs help in terms of more cuts. And I asked them both about SALT, and they echoed what President Trump just said. But I don't know if you caught this, but Trump said something that I haven't heard him say about SALT. He invoked Reagan.
Yeah.
He said Reagan tried to do this. And by the way, you know how he knows that is because when they did pass this in 2017, Paul Ryan engineered it as Speaker of the House, and he was a big Reagan devotee. I'm pretty sure that was a message that Ryan had at the time. And the whole idea of Reagan-style tax plans is simpler, fairer. And the message, two messages came out to me. First, his opening message, which was, it's been driving me nuts, Mark and Dan, that they keep calling it a big, beautiful bill, big, beautiful bill. I know it's cute and it's fun, but they should be calling this a tax cut. Republicans are great at selling tax cuts, and this is Trump's promised tax cut. But he also said, we're going to do this tax cut, and if we don't, everyone's taxes get increased automatically. That's the message. That's the binary choice.
That's the forcing mechanism and the hammer. The problem is, of course, the tax cuts don't actually expire till the end of the year. So there's no urgency to make sure to renew the tax cuts, and they're going to have to.
And they don't pay for themselves whatsoever. And
that's a whole other issue, Mr. Bookkeeper. Let me just play you one thing. This is Representative. Is it pronounced Ogles? Ogles, right? Congressman Ogles, talking to television host Matt Gaetz on OAN last night. 103, please.
Do you expect the president on Capitol Hill tomorrow to get involved to push this bill?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to see the squeeze come. We're relaying to the president that, look, we want to pass your big, beautiful bill. We want to make the tax cuts permanent. We want to signal to the bond markets and the stock market that, hey, we got this. That being said, we have to fix some of the things in it that are broken.
So, Larry, compared to, say, pre-tariff, what was that called? Restoration Day, Independence Day? Liberation Day. Pre-Liberation Day. How would you compare the president's sway now as compared to back then? In other words, of the events of his international trip, the impact of tariffs, et cetera, has it increased his sway or decreased it?
I think it's increased it. First of all, he noted, and he certainly will in the caucus meeting, that the market is actually stronger today than it was when he took office. The bounce back over the last couple of weeks is going to help him. He also did mention to the press just now about, hey, listen, I went to the Middle East. I brought money back to the country. Those guys all treated me with respect. Don't you stand in the way and disrespect me. For God's sake, I got oil sheiks with turbans on their heads to work with me more than you congressmen from South Carolina. You know, that's how he's going to try to put the pressure on today. And I think he does actually have quite a bit of sway. I know that the tax cuts won't get canceled until the end of the year, but they want to get something in right now so that the effects go in before the midterms. That's what they're trying to circle. And if they keep delaying and pushing this back, then even if they do get a bill passed, the American people aren't going to feel it until too close to Election Day in 26.
And they passed nothing else this year.
Yeah.
So like, this is it, right? Like they are shoving all the eggs into the basket. So, I think he still has power, because at the end of the day, for 95% of them, the question is your primary. And if Trump lines up opposite you with the entire MAGA universe, very few of them can stand in the way. The only ones who may have a shot are the moderates from those blue districts, again, over SALT, where their constituents would say amen, because if this doesn't pass, we get all of SALT back. So, I mean, I think I've always said this. He's going to roll the Freedom Caucus. He doesn't believe in debt and deficits, and he's just going to tell them to be quiet. The other thing to remember is, and I think Trump will say this, what they do is kind of irrelevant, because it's going to go to the Senate, and the Senate is going to make a whole bunch of changes. This bill is going to come back in their lap. So to try to make it perfect, to send it across the Capitol where they're going to completely change it, and then it's going to come back, I think they're just going to say, we've always said this, it's another step in the road, approve it, and we'll fine tune your problems later.
Okay. Anybody think? Well, let's just play for it all. What day will the House final passage be of this version? Not the bounce back from the Senate, but what day will they pass this bill, Larry?
When's the rules meeting again?
1 a.m. The next 1 a.m. You want to call that Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, but 1 a.m.
I say by the end of the week they actually wrestle this through.
Larry, I'm asking for a day of the week, not some vagary.
Friday.
Dan.
Thursday.
The correct answer is Saturday night. Saturday night is the answer we were looking for. All right.
So like Friday night, Saturday morning, or you mean like actual
Saturday night when you're having a hot toddy, they're going to pass it. All right. We'll see who's right. Ukraine, Russia. Dan, the president is being criticized by David Ignatius and others that he's got no forcing mechanism on Putin, no leverage, that Putin's just going to stall and delay, and that the president turned from saying he would lead the conversations to now saying, hey, why don't you guys go to the Vatican and work it out on your own? Are you bullish or bearish on the process right now?
Oh, I'm bearish. I think the question that has to start getting put on the table is who lost Ukraine? Because Trump seems very, very content to let this drift off.
Larry.
It's sad.
I'm bullish only that the fact that conversations are happening and there's a potential for a summit at the Vatican is, again, miles further than we were before President Trump took office. I know he promised he'd do it on day one. But I think that the more they're talking and the more there's the possibility for a ceasefire and a resolution here, we're way better off than the endless war that we were mired in.
What ceasefire? There's no talk of ceasefire whatsoever.
Moving toward a ceasefire, and
no talk whatsoever of moving toward a ceasefire.
Well, there's rhetoric about it.
Not from Russia. There isn't. No, there isn't. There is desperation and begging from the United States. Ukraine is sitting there saying we'll talk, and Russia just keeps saying niet, and they're throwing bombs, more bombs.
Right.
They're steamrolling them.
All right, I'm going to skip over some stuff. I'm going to skip over some stuff because we put so much time on the president. So again, a couple more topics, and we'll go to your questions. So please raise your hand if you'd like to be part of the conversation. Dan, how would you characterize the media's posture towards covering Joe Biden right this minute?
They are not asking the right questions at this point. I think I mean, they're still a little bit held up on like the reelection and should he have gotten out sooner. I think the real question now is, should Joe Biden still have been president the last 2 years? And certainly that last year. And did he have cancer on top of the mental acuity decline? Because if he was receiving, chemo or hormone therapy, or that is hard for a healthy, really strong person to function. Most companies would put a CEO on leave during that time. Jamie Dimon left when he was being treated for cancer. It is hard to fathom that Joe Biden did not potentially have this while in office, and we need answers. The country deserves it.
Larry, and of course the media would have to, if they were doing a full appraisal, would have to look at their own failure to cover that issue of whether he should have been in. Larry, it's testament to the impact that all this has had on Joe Biden's image and his staff's image. And I'm talking about the Her audio, I'm talking about the Tapper Thompson book, I'm talking about the timing of the cancer disclosure, that a lot of Democrats who hate Donald Trump and love Joe Biden have said to me what Dan just suggested, which was they think there's a good possibility he was being secretly treated for cancer as president.
Yeah. And to answer your question, those are the questions the media should be asking. A couple of them have. But they should be talking to doctors. They should be talking to experts like our mutual friend Megyn Kelly yesterday, and I had him on today. One of the foremost prostate cancer specialists is David Samadi. During my interview this morning on WMAL, he said, based on every indication, this sounds like he's had this for years. And apparently the appropriate treatment is the hormone treatment, right? Yeah. He told me, Dr. Samadi did, that one of the major side effects of that hormone treatment for this kind of cancer is memory loss and cognitive problems. So exactly the symptoms that he had been displaying for the last several years.
I don't know that I'm the first to say this, but I haven't heard too many people say it, or anybody say it, I should say. When they put out their statement, it should have included, for their own good and the good of the country and the good of our democracy and our institutions, they should have said, here's the president's history of PSA tests.
Yeah.
Right? They should have said that, and they should make his doctor available to give the country a full briefing, taking questions not from political reporters, but from medical reporters. Mm-hmm. What was the history of the president's screening for and treatment of cancer? Because until they're forthcoming, and they're the only ones who can answer the question, people are going to doubt this. And it's not about not covering Donald Trump, as I say before. It's about having the credibility to cover Donald Trump and everything else with a failure to cover Joe Biden's health in the White House.
That's right.
It's just staggering. Dan.
Well, and I think the one difference is because you see the Biden playbook here. No transparency. Nobody is being put available, not like the Biden family, not senior staff. No one will go on the record to kind of advocate anything more.
Right.
In the past, the party and the media would cover for them, right? They could kind of iron grip down.
Yes.
Now the media is kind of wobbly. The party is completely turning on them in private and some of them in public. So it'll be interesting to see how much longer this defense can hold, because the pillars around them are getting kind of under.
And Larry, before you get in, I just want to make the point a little bit finer than I did, because Dan spurred me to clarify what I mean. The president, any president who has a health issue, it's going to be able to focus the public on public health education. There's all these men out there who don't get tested, right? And should. And so for him to say, well, I got the best healthcare in the world and this thing snuck up on me, it's like, it's not right. They need to explain his medical history that led to this moment, because I'd say there's 2% of doctors that I've talked to or heard who have held open the possibility that this happened without any prior testing or understanding. The chances of it are so low, it doesn't make any sense. And they're now creating confusion in the public's mind about Joe Biden's credibility, but also about public health on an issue where we need public health education. Larry, sorry.
I agree. In fact, I think it's irresponsible, this messaging out there is, oh, it's no big deal that he just forego the PSA test. But it's no big deal. They're taking blood out for all the other tests. Just check the PSA as well. Why would you send a message now that you don't need to, or you can forego the PSA test? It's completely irresponsible. And again, sadly, we've seen this pattern of behavior of politicizing science and politicizing medical treatment.
Yep.
And also, and not to revisit our conversation from Friday, which was lively, but after the her video, or the audio, I should say, and this new revelation, is it not, again, incumbent on the former staff members of the Biden administration? I'm talking about Karine Jean-Pierre. I'm talking about the chief of staff. I'm talking about Jake Sullivan and Antony Blinken and Kamala Harris, who interacted with him every day, to answer questions about what happened in that building and in the executive branch of government when Joe Biden didn't have a good day.
Yes, sir. All right. Last topic, real quick, guys, because we want to get to everybody's questions. Marco Rubio. I don't believe he'll be national security advisor for much longer, except I'm told the president's having a little bit of trouble focusing on filling the job. It's a snake bit job for him, right? First term, he did not love his national security advisors for a variety of reasons. And his first one in this term did not work out and would have been fired long before, I believe, except for the fact that the president didn't want to deal with it. Well, he doesn't want to deal with replacing, but the Secretary Rubio's happy in Foggy Bottom, would like to get back to having that job. So my question to you is about Marco Rubio. Is he angling to run for president or vice president in 2028, Larry?
I would love to know how the conversation went on the plane there on the way to the Vatican and then to Ukraine. I think obviously Vance has the inside track. It would be a disaster for Rubio and Vance to run against each other. So my hunch is that he's angling for vice president, and the Vance-Rubio ticket will be unstoppable.
Dan?
I think he's angling for both. I don't think it's a given he would be the vice president. I would look at some of the women and others. Just, I think if it's JD, he'll make the call on what he thinks he needs in 3 years, and it may be Rubio, it may not.
Yeah.
But I think he is going to try to do everything he can in case JD slips, in case Trump turns on him, to be there as an option.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think there's a possibility. I'm not predicting it. I think there's a possibility we have an unprecedented situation where not only is Vance the front runner for president wire to wire, but Rubio is the front runner for vice president wire to wire. Really think that could happen. All right, time for your questions. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a quickie? If Rubio does end up being Vance's running mate and is vice president and then eventually runs for president, has there ever been a more experienced candidate for president, a man who had been a senator, secretary of state, and vice president, then running for president?
Well, some could argue Hillary Clinton was vice president for
George H.W. Bush had a lot experience.
Yeah.
Not secretary of state.
Well, no, but he'd been envoy to China and he'd been
director,
head of the RNC, CIA director. James, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Hello.
Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, and thank you for being part of Two Way.
No, thank you very much. So my name is James. I'm from Brighton, Sussex in England. So with typical English peace, love and understanding, I'll ask Dan a short question. Is the Democratic Party still infected with the Russiagate virus?
The Democrats still in...
I'll add some context. I mean, I guess I'm curious as to Dan's position on Ukraine. And as a British leftist, I find it remarkable that I'm agreeing with Trump, who wants diplomacy. Whether it's successful, that may be, but your position, if I may, still seems to be more arms when Russia is always going to win, no matter whether we like it or not. They have more arms, bigger population. Is the Democrats' position still surely not more arms, more arms, more arms?
Oh, I don't know about that. Well, first off, I don't think it's a given he was going to win. He wasn't winning. It was a stalemate. He doesn't have more sophisticated arms. What he has more is bodies. And the Russians throughout their history throw bodies at wars just into a meat grinder. They've always done it. I mean, so I don't think it's a given, right? I think he's going to keep the land he got, but I think, so you're saying you're cool with Ukraine becoming part of Russia?
It's not about being cool with Ukraine, but it's about what the absolute best way to end this. And I just see...
Well, no, but that's like saying, should we just give Hitler like all of Europe because that's the best way to end it?
It's amazing that the Democrats still bring up Hitler. I mean, is this really still where the conversation is having? And this is why I agree with Trump.
So, James, let me ask you then. He says his goal is most of Eastern Europe.
No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say that.
He doesn't. In fact, he said it in writing. He does. That's his goal. always been his goal.
I mean, it's amazing that the Democrats, I mean, I live in Britain, so, you know, surely by that definition, we should be preparing the nuclear bunkers. We've been propagandized in England to believe that Russia is at the Pas de Calais. Russia is nowhere near France, let alone anywhere else. So look, whatever the rights and wrongs of this, we should all want peace. The estimates are that 1 million Ukrainians, I'm sure just as many Russians have been killed. I just want to see peace. This idea that more arms, because then all we're doing is sacrificing Ukrainians.
Hold on a second.
James, hold on.
The Ukrainians aren't asking for peace. The Ukrainians want to defend their country.
James, let me ask you a question. How'd you find two-way?
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
How did it enter your life, I mean?
I think it was via Megyn Kelly, and that's why I say as a British leftist, I find myself tuning more into Megyn Kelly. And that's why I would just make one observation, if I may, because I appreciate some people are already saying this is very boring. But
James, don't read the chat, dude.
I find it remarkable. Can I, just as a general plea to Americans as a British leftist, please stop associating calling Democrats left. There is nothing left about the Democrats. Even the Conservatives, a centre-right party in the UK, believe in healthcare for all. And I'm sorry, just please, it just turns my stomach, this idea that the Democrats are in any way a left party. They're mostly wine mums who love war.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
James, Larry's going to ask you a question, but
oh no, please do.
When we bring two-way to the UK, we want you as part of our grassroots organization.
I'd love to. Be my absolute pleasure.
Okay, Larry.
I actually wanted to rejoin with Dan real fast because I would agree that it's not a given that Putin will win or Russia will win here, but I think it is a given that he's not necessarily going to lose, not unless this is a really drawn out right? So then it's incumbent on the grownups in the room to figure out, okay, what's the solution here? And short of a multinational coalition of military forces, Ukraine's just stuck where it is. So what is the solution in your mind?
It has to be, sorry, Dan, no, I apologize, Dan. It has to be diplomacy, because let me tell you, the EU bureaucrats, so Ursula von der Leyen, or Frau Genocide, as she's known on the EU left, the British people do not want war. European citizens do not want war with Russia. No matter how many ridiculous politicians say that, it's all about increasing the defense budget. But the British people, the people in Europe do not want war with Russia. We want peace.
James, thank you for coming on. Grateful to have you.
My absolute pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
Please come back regularly.
Cheerio.
Send me some Weetabix also when you get a chance. Don't have that here. Possible to obtain.
Can't find a good biscuit here.
No. Bruce, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
I'm in Pueblo, Colorado.
Beautiful
nice,
place.
Cool 39 degrees this morning.
Yeah.
But it'll be 75 later on.
Yes, sir.
A comment and a question. Comment for, I'd like to hear your reactions. Every 40 or 50 years, the U.S. reinvents itself. There's a political realignment, and I think we're going through that right now. And the Republican Party seems to have started that years ago. I think Trump is kind of the catalyst for that. The Democrats, I don't think are there yet. I suspect David Hogue might be a catalyst for that in his situation. So I really think the Democrats do need a lot more younger people involved. New ideas, new point of view,
yes, sir.
New attitude.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like you to react to that. And my question for Dan, I love your bookshelf. And if you have any recommendations, I've got bookshelves all around me here. I'd love to add to it. And for Mark, I just wanted to say back on the 13th, I turned into Next Up, and you were talking about the media cover-up. And the thing that jumped out to me about that I wanted to say thank you to you was your assessment and the demeanor of your presentation reminded me, and I'm old enough to remember Edward R. Murrow talking about McCarthyism and when he turned that off. And I was just tickled to death listening to you. And I wish this was CBS with all their viewers, but that was great.
Bruce, very, very kind of you. Unworthy of that comparison, but really very kind of you. And I appreciate you checking out Next Up. And you'll like today's episode too. Dan, thank you for that. Dan, what books should Bruce buy? And where's the party going to get some new ideas and new blood?
Yeah, I'll start with the first one. I actually think that the realignment started under Obama, where we became more of an urban, white-collar, professional party and less of a blue-collar party. It was, he was battling Hillary Clinton. She did well in the rural areas. He did well in the urban areas. That kind of ascendant, the coalition of the ascendant, they called it, kind of young and diverse. It was more of an urban party. And Trump exploited it in 2016 and has driven a truck through it and really, become more of a blue collar party. And we are a white collar services party now. And there's fewer of us than there are of blue collar. So I think it'll be, incumbent on the party now to try to fix that. And we'll see what happens. As far as books, I mean, gosh, there's so many. The LBJ series on power is remarkable. I'm fascinated by Ronald Reagan, just partly because I grew up in his era and think he was a pretty remarkable president, whether you agree with his policies or not. Churchill is another one, and Teddy Roosevelt. So anyway, I can put on X some ideas.
Okay, love to hear him.
Dan, Dan, hold on, Dan. No other thoughts on book recommendations?
Game Change is where I would start. I mean, all the Mark Halperin books should be your first introduction to politics.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, just making sure. Larry,
sorry.
I 100% agree with Dan about Obama being a catalyst for a big portion of the ship. But I'd like to say in the last several years, a big reason why the pendulum swung even further or faster, let's say, in terms of reshaping what the Republican Party stands for, in contrast to the Democrats, is cultural issues. The LGBTQ plus issues, which many Republicans were okay with the idea of, hey, we just want two loved ones to be able to visit each other in the hospital, so same-sex unions of some sort we'd be okay with. We've now come so far over, and it's such a dogma now for the political left or Democrats in this country that if you are at odds with the transgender agenda, or if you speak out against it, you're suddenly cancelable. I think that attracted a lot of conservative people who didn't even know they were conservative, but thought, no, I don't agree with that, and they find themselves over in my camp.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say also immigration. I mean, we became the party of Greenwich Village in San Francisco, and anyone who said anything different, and COVID accelerated this.
Yeah.
What, it's black, right, wrong type of thing. And we drove off half the country.
And the only argument is, well, who's going to cut our lawns? Who's going to, make the beds in hotel rooms, which is, wow, that's, we've come a long way, I think, as two different parties with two different messages.
Yeah. Bruce, thanks for coming on. What do you like about two-way?
Oh, the education. You're not yelling at each other. And you don't go off in these far directions. I discovered you lying in a bed when I'm fighting cancer right now, and I didn't want to watch the television in the hospital room. It was just awful. And I found you on my phone, and I was just blown away. It was great. Thank you for that. And Bruce, we're all rooting for you in your fight. We've got a new show coming up about cancer that I hope you'll be part of. We'll announce the details of soon, but our goal is to unite everybody who's in the fight and give people a chance to ask questions, and also to see that you're fighting this as part of a community, not by yourself. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. All right. Now I'm having a little trouble, I confess, with Ina Lee. Ina Lee, is that how you pronounce your name? Ina Lee. Trying to get you to unmute. Can you unmute? I hope your unmute skills are better than your camera work. I say that with respect, but
this is very David Lynch Twin Peaks action here.
Yeah.
Where's the ceiling fan?
To me, it's Coen Brothers, but that's just me. Are you able to unmute, ma'am? I'd love to have you on, but you need to hit unmute. All right. Let's give it one more moment, and while we wait, we'll ask Haley to come in. Haley, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Haley hails from Texas, and she's got some cool shades on. Haley, thank you for joining. What's on your mind today?
Well, I'm back in New York, and I have
okay. Welcome back.
I'm on the beach.
That's nice. What beach is that?
It's Rockaway Park.
Let's
rock,
go.
rock away beach.
So it's amazing out here.
Yeah.
Right near Coney Island there, yep.
Yeah, it's the best view in the world. So I just wanted to go back to the other war, because I always obviously want to talk about Israel, unfortunately. And the last 2 weeks have been kind of rough for us over here. And I just wanted to know, like, reporting wise, how much of this is what I've been hearing from like the Israeli media of it's kind of personal, all of the decisions being made by the administration. And I think like last night, I think there was a report that Trump said, like, start wrapping up this war, otherwise we're basically washing our hands of you, kind of thing. So I wanted to know how much of it is kind of policy oriented, or is this Netanyahu Trump beef, so to speak?
Yeah. We've talked about it a few times the last couple of weeks, and there's so much going on. The Europeans pressuring the Israelis simultaneously launching another offensive and suggesting more humanitarian aid, and the U.S. and President Trump skipping Israel on the trip, Vance talking about going and not going. There's just a lot happening. Larry, what's your overall sense of where we are?
I still want to believe that Trump knows that he's got his best friend in that region with Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think that certainly there was, one unreported story was how many people in the conservative movement were very concerned about the Middle East trip, about cozying up to Qatar. Mark Levin, who is a clarion voice for conservative principles and a huge supporter of Israel, has been highly critical of the president and some of the overtures that he was making toward potentially a peace deal with Iran. So there is a little bit of an internal conversation within the conservative movement about this as well. But yesterday, Ambassador Huckabee in Israel gave a full-throated message of support to Israel and to the government. And the bottom line is there is no lasting peace in that region if Hamas still controls Gaza. And I think that the Trump administration agrees with that. They believe that. And how that gets done is really the question. But I still think that Trump is on board with making sure Israel is safe forever.
Dan, before you answer, just an update on the president's schedule. 3 p.m. today makes an announcement with the Secretary of Defense. I have no idea what it's about, but I do have wild speculation, which I perhaps will make in a moment after I do some reporting while Dan answers. Dan.
All right, so filibuster is what you're saying. I actually think this is one of the most fascinating stories that's kind of falling under the radar between Biden and the reconciliation bill and Ukraine. Is there does seem to be a diverging point of view between Israel wanting to finish the job, as Larry kind of just said, to get rid of Hamas. I'm not so sure Trump is fully on board with that. If Netanyahu said this is going to take 6 months to a year and we're going to need your help to occupy, I'm not sure Trump would be on board with that. I think he wants a peace deal with Iran because he wants kind of economic activity out of that region. And, war is not good for business, as they would say. And so I think Trump wants peace and quiet and prosperity. Israel wants their long-term security kind of, dealt with. And that's not in alignment. And I think Trump doesn't want war, will cut a deal with Iran if he can. And the question will be, what is the Israelis' response? And do they potentially move without Trump's approval against Iran?
Haley, thank you. Grateful to you always. Enjoy the view, and don't ride the cyclone on a full stomach. Steve.
Or the A train, for that matter.
Yeah. Steve, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm in New York City and longtime member of the community. I've been on a couple times before. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you back. Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to raise something, but I happened to be able to listen yesterday, and there was a very articulate and thoughtful a woman who was on who was expressing, dismay, horror about sort of what was done to Biden in terms of putting him in a position, being an elderly man, that this was a terrible thing for people to have done to him. And I'm sure there's truth in that. But there's also another way to look at it, which might be Biden's ego.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily clear that this was done to him.
Yes, sir.
He was making decisions about wanting to run for president in 2019 and again to be reelected, and doing so in spite of his potentially putting his son in legal jeopardy and these sorts of things.
Yes,
so,
sir.
I agree with that woman, but
yes.
there's another way to look at it. My question,
Agreed.
Mark, is kind of about media. So I listened to my algorithm surfaced a podcast of you on American Compass, and you were speaking about the media. It seemed you were more speaking about, and you were being, constructively critical, and you were speaking primarily about the coverage of Trump, and looking at how the media's, I'll let you phrase it, but drop the ball on the coverage of Trump. And I watched the Sunday shows when I first moved to this fine country, and they were very, very informative. And I'm wondering what you think about the Sunday shows nowadays. I really have trouble.
Steve, I'm gonna tell you that I can tell just from their laughter. No one, Dan, Larry, and I know watch the Sunday shows anymore.
Yeah, and so is it how much is it that the Sunday shows have changed, or how much of it is that the level of discourse you can find on a platform like Two-Way has just raised the bar so much that you go back to those, and it's just the politicians jawboning and sort of seemingly banal.
Yeah.
And all the questions are like clickbait oriented.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say something to try to get you to say something that we can put on our website.
Right. All three of us could talk for several hours about this topic. We'll all say two things each in response. Here are my two things. Dick Cheney used to refuse to do any Sunday show but meet the press. And he told his staff, I'm not going to get up Sunday morning and go do on a show where they're going to ask me the wrong questions. I want to go on with Tim, and Tim will ask me good questions, and I'll give good answers, and I'll get the message out there. I think there's something to that, and that's all I'll say there. The other thing is, just you wait until there's a Two-Way Sunday show. Just you wait. Dan, thoughts on the Sunday shows? Two thoughts each.
Yeah, look, they used to make news because there wasn't as many outlets to get news. Now, between everyone having a camera and all the shows and podcasts, it's just there's nothing new on those shows. You don't hear anything new.
Yeah, and I would say, since I'm sitting in Sean's chair, he and I are of like mind about the outrageous makeup of these panels that they have. They'll do their interviews, and to Mark's point, the interviews are not meant to draw out new information or perspectives that inform and educate the audience. They're meant to pick a fight and create some level of viral moment, it appears, at least from a conservative Republican perspective. And then when the interview is over, they turn to the panel, and the panel is completely populated by people who don't like Donald Trump. I can't think of one person on the payroll on any of the three major networks on the payroll now who is actually a pro-Trump conservative Republican. They bring ABC, I think, has Chris Christie. Steve Hayes is on NBC. I don't even know if CBS tries to have something.
Reince Priebus they have on this.
Reince is a Trump supporter. Good call, Steve.
Is he on the payroll on NBC?
Is he on ABC? I think he is at ABC.
All right. I stand corrected.
Steve, thank you for coming in and raising the topic and on both the Joe Biden and the Sunday shows. Grateful to you. All right. Reminder of a bunch of things. First of all, the news of our new shows is on Deadline now. I've tweeted out the link to the Deadline story. So if you want to read more about the three shows, and we'll keep reminding you of them, don't worry. Our best guess about the Pete Hegseth Donald Trump event at 3:00 is details on the Afghanistan withdrawal by the Biden administration, which a lot of Republicans have urged them to go through and excavate and be revealing of things that the Biden administration would not do. So that'll be another Joe Biden in the news moment, I believe, if that's what this announcement is. Later today, 5:00 Eastern time, I will be back Two-Way Tonight. Early time, if you're going to join us on the Two-Way platform. And again, two Trump 2.0 guests, Ed Martin of the Justice Department and the lobbyist, Jess McDowell. Again, you're going to want to hear from these two guys. It's going to be a great conversation. Then at 7, and then it'll be on YouTube at 6, like normal. And then 7:00, the Moynihan Report, Michael's guest, Olivia Reingold of the Free Press. And then I told you about my conversation with Joe Scarborough. We just recorded it. And the first bit of that where Joe talks about his now famous declaration after meeting with Joe Biden that it was the best Biden ever. Joe and I have a long conversation about it. You can see that now on my Twitter feed and on Next Up. So you can watch that now. And the full interview you can watch on YouTube later or listen to where you get your finer podcast later today. Noah, did I forget anything I was supposed to say?
You've got so many shows now,
I don't think
Mark.
so, Mark.
The whole show
Yeah.
could just be talking about the upcoming shows.
Exactly.
Larry, we're so happy to have you back.
Michael Moynihan tonight, isn't he?
I
on?
did.
Okay.
I said that. You were daydreaming. Larry, so happy to have you back. When can we get you next?
Thank you. Well, my noon show is coming up, and I'm going to go take a look at your Scarborough clip because it might make it into my rundown at noon on the town hall platforms.
I bet it will.
And tonight, I'll be in Alexandria at the Birchmere because the great John Andrasik, Five for Fighting, is giving a sold-out concert, and he's great. He's a great patriot and a great American.
Is that festival seating or is that ticketed seating?
It's a dinner situation. You can go, you get seated at a table. I mean, I have a reserved seat, of course, Mark, because I'm a big player in this.
Have the fish. Dan, what are you doing later?
I will be on with Jesse Waters tonight to talk about likely, I've not been told yet, but likely probably Joe Biden.
All right. Grateful to you all for watching. Please check out our 3 new programs. I give you my word that it is 7 super talented people that you will enjoy. One, of course, is Dan, so I don't need to sell you on that. But like I said, check my Substack for details about when the shows will be on, and we, believe it or not, we'll keep reminding you. Grateful to y'all for participating. Thank you for those who asked questions. I will see you at 5 o'clock Eastern time tonight here on the Two-Way platform for Two-Way Tonight. Have a great day, everybody.